Yesterday, I went to volleyball, like I do every day, and I was chatting with a teammate who had received a letter from the CRA, and they had asked her for some more information in regards to a specific line on her tax return, and she wasn't totally sure what it meant or why she had received this letter. So, that's what I'm talking about today. What happens when you receive a review letter from the CRA? What is a review letter? So because we have a self-assessed tax system in Canada, which means that we are responsible for reporting our own earnings and deductions and credits and all the things to the CRA, then the CRA routinely does reviews on specific pieces of those returns. So not everybody's return will get reviewed, and those that are reviewed, not every review is of the same line. So maybe this person gets reviewed on employment expenses, maybe this person gets reviewed on medical expenses, etc. So that is because it's a self-assessed tax system, your name could literally be pulled, not literally, figuratively be pulled out of a hat, and you could be chosen for a review. So it's not just if you've done something wrong or they think that you're doing something shady that you might get a review letter in the mail. So anybody could get a letter. Don't be afraid. These letters are not a full-blown audit, and they're just routine and random. I mean, sometimes they'll pick you if you know there's been a few years. There are specific circumstances where you would get picked if and it wasn't just random, but for the most part it's random. So what they're asking for is just the documentation to prove whatever it was that you reported. My friend yesterday, for example, had a review letter about the other income line, and they just wanted to know more about what was in that other income line. I've seen review letters for employment expenses as well. That's a pretty common one, where they will ask for the information in regards to if you were employed by someone but you worked at home, for example, or you had to use your own vehicle or phone or something like that for work, then the CRA, you can deduct that on your taxes, and the CRA will ask for proof of your deductions. So they might ask for the slip that says that you're allowed to deduct those things from your employer, because those don't actually get filed with the CRA. Those are T2200, and your employer has to fill it out and has to give it to you, but they don't actually get filed with the CRA. So when the CRA asks to see your employment expenses, you'll need that form. You'll also need all of your receipts that make up the numbers that you put into your tax return, and you will need that full schedule from your taxes. I think it's T777, but I always get that one confused with rental income, which I think is like 778. Anyways, I've gone into a form number rabbit hole, so we're coming back out. Another one that the CRA will review is medical expenses, because they don't have any visibility on these kinds of things. So medical expenses, they don't know what you've spent money on. So if you have a lot of medical, then they'll want to see the receipts for those to make sure that they're all claimable. Some of the things that they don't ever review, as far as I know, from the personal tax perspective, is things that go on a slip. So if you have a T4 or a T5 or something that got filed with the CRA, then they wouldn't ever come to you and ask for proof of that income. They would go to the company that actually filed the slip. So review letters in general, not a scary thing. And when you get one, you really just need to compile all of the documents, which theoretically would already be compiled for when you had done your taxes. So it's important to keep those for at least 7 years, because the CRA could go back up to 7 years and ask to see those documents. And so when you get this letter, what do? So you've got all your receipts together, and now what? So on the review letter, it'll have a case number or a reference number or something like that. It's usually in the top right-hand corner. It'll say like the date and the account number, which is your social insurance number, and the reference number. And you can use that number to upload your documents to the CRA. If you log into the CRA My account, then there's a space to upload documents there. And you can just scan them or take pictures or whatever works for you, and you can upload them with your case number so that the CRA knows what the documents are in reference to, basically. So once you do that, then the whole thing, so the review letter is actually generated by a department in the CRA called the review department. And so you can't call the individual inquiries line to ask about your review. They can tell you some things, but you have to actually call the review department. The number for the review department, I'm pretty sure, is 1-800-959-5504. But it should be on your review letter. So you upload all this stuff to them, you give them a case number, and then they review it. They have a look at what you've sent in, and they make any necessary adjustments to your return after that. So if you had childcare expenses, for example, they like to review dependent information. So you would need to submit your Schedule 5 from your tax return, which is just the dependent information and the credits it's claiming, and childcare expense receipts. And if you're separated from your child's other parent, then you would have to prove that the child lived with you and that you have an agreement of where the child lives between the two of you. It's usually pretty outlined in the review letter exactly what you have to upload. But anyway, so you upload all that stuff, and if they've decided to make a change to your return based on the information that you've sent them, they'll just make it. So you don't have to make any kind of adjustments after that. You can call the review people, and they can tell you whether or not they have your stuff, have your submission, but they can't give you a timeline for how long it's going to take, unfortunately. So it's just kind of a waiting game. I have one client who submitted documents for a review in December, and I called them today, and they're like, yep, we got it. Haven't started working on it. So it takes a while. Sometimes it takes a while, but that's okay. I think that's okay. And if they come back and they've decided that what you've submitted is not proof enough for the line that they are reviewing, so maybe you didn't have enough childcare expenses, or some of them were unclaimable or something like that, they will come back and they'll tell you what their findings were, and you have the opportunity to then go back with more information if you have it, to try and continue with the review. Yeah, so it's just a lot of administration. It's not a super complicated process, and it's not really very technical either from a tax law perspective. It's, I mean, I guess it depends what you're being reviewed for, whether it's technical from a tax law perspective, but not something to be afraid of, especially if you have an expert in your corner that's helping you to navigate and translate the CRA. If you have a review letter that you got and you're confused, or you don't understand what they're asking for, or maybe it's just scary and you don't want to deal with it, I totally understand. If you want to book free 30 minutes with me, I'd love to just chat with you about it and answer your questions, and I can explain to you what they need uploaded. I've left a link to my call booking app thingy in the description, so you can book a free call with me. I'd love to chat with you. In the comments, I'd love to know if you have ever been reviewed by the CRA. How'd it go? What happened? Yeah, I'm always interested in the stories with interactions with the CRA, so let me know. I'll see you tomorrow.